forward to give report to the reviewing officer.
Northern Army Commander reviewed the parade. In the passing out parade, Lieutenant General Y.K. Joshi, Uttam Yudh Seva Medal, Ati Vishisht Seva Medal, Veer Chakra, Sena Medal, ADC General Officer Commanding in Chief, Northern Command, with the chief guest on this occasion.
Academies in India and officers training.
The contingents are now marched by a poet and philosopher. First contingent is Guray's company.
Ladies and gentlemen,
बहुत पुराना है. प्राचीन काल में
will inspire these.
In a bid due to General Bipin Rawat on Friday, the late Chief of Defence Staff and his wife were cremated on a single pyre with full military honours. Their daughters Kritika and Tarini performed the last rites. General Rawat's final farewell was an emotional one. Thousands thronged the route taken by General Rawat's funeral procession to pay their last respects. Crowds lined up the roads, showered flower petals, ran along the cortege carrying the tricolour and raising patriotic songs. The nation mourns an irreparable loss, the loss of a hero, a decorated officer who served his nation until his last breath. The ashes of General Rawat and his wife, Mrs. Madhulika Rawat, will be taken to Haridwar today. President Ramnath Kovind paid homage to former president of the country, late Sri Pranab Mukherjee, today on his birth anniversary. He paid floral tributes in front of the portrait of Sri Pranab Mukherjee at Raj Bhavan, Uttarakhand. Pranab Mukherjee was born on 11 December 1935 in West Bengal's Birbhum district. A true statesman, Pranab Mukherjee had an illustrious political career spanning over 5 decades. In view of the challenging humanitarian situation in Afghanistan, the Government of India has dispatched a consignment of medical supplies on the return flight today. The special flight from Kabul to New Delhi, chartered by the Government of India, had arrived at IGI Airport in New Delhi on Friday. The medicines will be handed over to the representatives of Indira Gandhi Children's Hospital, Kabul. Yesterday, under Operation Devi Shakti, the special flight brought in 10 Indians and 94 Afghans. The members carried with them 2 swarups of Guru Granth Sahib Ji and some ancient Hindu manuscripts. An update on the COVID situation across the country now. The recovery of 9,265 patients in the last 24 hours has increased the cumulative tally of recovered patients to 3,41,14,331. India's recovery rate now stands at 98.36%, which is the highest since March 2020. Sustained and collaborative efforts by the centre and the states and union territories continue the trend of less than 15,000 daily new cases. That's been reported for the last 44 days now. 7,992 new cases were reported in the last 24 hours. Active caseload is presently at 93,277 and active cases constitute 0.27% of the country's total positive cases, which is the lowest since March 2020. The testing capacity across the country continues to be expanded. The last 24 hours saw a total of 12,50,672 tests being conducted. India has so far conducted over 65.46 crore cumulative tests. While testing capacity has been enhanced across the country, weekly positivity rate at 0.71% remains less than 1% for the last 27 days now. The daily positivity rate is reported to be 0.64%. and it has remained below 2% for the last 68 days. Getting you an update on the nationwide vaccination drive now, with administration of 76,36,569 vaccine doses in the last 24 hours. India's COVID-19 vaccination coverage has crossed 131.99 crore. 131 crore 99,92,482 vaccine doses have been administered across the country till now. Cabinet Secretary will hold a review meeting on COVID this afternoon. Members of Niti Aayog, Health Secretary, Pharma Secretary, DBT Secretary are participating in the meeting. This meeting is very significant in view of COVID preparedness, including new variant Omicron and vaccination. The second case of Omicron variant of COVID has been detected in the national capital. The person infected has a travel history and was fully vaccinated. He had recently returned from Zimbabwe. The person had also traveled to South Africa earlier. The first case of the variant was detected in Delhi on 5th of this month. Extended range Pinaka multi-barrel rocket launcher system was successfully tested at Pokhran range this morning. The system is designed by DRDO Labs, that is ARDE, along with HEMRL, Pune. The technology has been transferred to the Indian industry. The Pinaka ER is the upgraded version of the earlier version of Pinaka, which has been in service with the Indian Army for the last decade. The system has been designed in line of emerging requirements with advanced technologies enhancing the range. Those who are looking for a pair of shoes may soon have a different measure instead of going by the UK, US or the EU size chart, which is the norm at the moment. The government has initiated the first ever development of Indian footwear sizing system. It will standardize the footwear size ranges required to cover the need of local population. The Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, in consultation with Central Leather Research Institute, Chennai, will define the proportions and rules of constructing shoe lasts required for providing well-fitting and healthy footwear. Since the present Indian standard specification of sizing and fitting of footwear is based on the European and French standards, it necessitates a revision to accommodate for demographic, anthropometric features of the Indian feet for more comfortable footwear. And farmers who were protesting brought curtains down on their year-long agitation. Farmers took down their settlements and are vacating the borders around Delhi. They are returning to their homes after the announcement of the suspension of their year-long protest. The development comes after the agitating farmers received a formal letter from the centre agreeing to consider their pending demands and officially called off the protests earlier this week. The protesters had declared that they would vacate the site at around 9 a.m. on Saturday. And every day on DD India, we bring you a special story on India's glorious freedom struggle that is one of the greatest struggles in the modern world. In today's edition of Freedom Saga, we will remember the freedom fighter and the pioneer of modern Tamil poetry, Subramanian Bharati, and the national poet, Pradeep. Let's take a look.
In today's episode, we remember freedom fighter and the pioneer of modern Tamil poetry, Subramania Bharati, who was born on the 11th of December, 1882. Popularly known as Bharatayar, his works, including fiery songs, kindled patriotism during the Indian independence movement. He also worked towards the emancipation of women and so-called lower castes.
இந்த நிலை கட்ட மனிதரை நினைந்து விட்டால் நிலை கட்ட மனிதரை நினைந்து விட்டால் நெஞ்சு பொறுக்குதில்லையே நெஞ்சு பொறுக்குதில்லையே.
Bharatiyar was a champion of women's rights, and he believed that women were the propagators of civilization and the preservers of culture. He wrote that women must write the laws and lead the society. In Bharatiyar's own words, Vivekananda's disciple, Sister Nivedita, taught him the meaning of true service to the nation. As a mark of respect, Bharatiyar dedicated the first volume of his national songs to her.
Bharatiyar covered political, social and spiritual themes, The songs and poems composed by him have become staples in the literary and musical repertoire of Tamil artists throughout the world. He paved the way for modern blank verse and wrote many books, including Kananpatta, Songs to Krishna, Panchali Saptam, Panchali's Vow, and Kuyal Patta, Koyal Song.
அஞ்சி அஞ்சி சாவார் இவர் அஞ்சாத பொருளில்லை அவனியிலே அஞ்சி அஞ்சி சாவார் இவர் அஞ்சாத பொருளில்லை.
India Post issued a commemorative stamp in his honor in 1960.
पिंजरे के पंछी रे टूट गई है माला मोती
कोई लाख करे चतुराई.
We also remember Rashtra Kavi Pradeep, who died on 11th of December 1998. Born as Ramachandra Dwivedi on the 6th of February 1915 in Badnagar, Madhya Pradesh, Kavi Pradeep started writing and reciting poetry at a very early age. After enthralling audiences and gatherings in his home state with his inimitable style, he was invited to a Kavi Sammelan in Bombay, where he was offered his first film, Kangan, by Himanshu Rai of Bombay Talkies.
His next film was Bandhan in 1940, of which Pradeep wrote all the songs, including the most notable Chal Chal Re Naujawan, which made waves since the Indian freedom movement was at a crucial juncture.
चल चल रे नौजवान चल चल रे नौजवान कहना मेरा मान मान चल रे नौजवान.
Later in 1943, movie Kismat reverberated the Quit India call through the patriotic song आज हिमालय की चोटी से फिर हमने ललकारा है, दूर हटो ए दुनिया वालों, हिंदुस्तान हमारा है.
आज हिमालय की चोटी से फिर हमने ललकारा है, दूर हटो दूर हटो दूर हटो है दुनिया वालों, हिंदुस्तान हमारा.
गांधी जी ने जब 42 में क्विट इंडिया का स्लोगन दिया कि करो या मरो, तो हम एक पिक्चर बना रहे थे किस्मत में. मैंने एक गाना लिखा तो मैंने कहा दुनिया वालों को तो रहने दो, लेकिन दूसरे स्टेंजा के अंदर कि शुरू हुआ है जंग तुम्हारा जाग उठो हिंदुस्तानी, तुमने किसी के आगे झुकना जर्मन हो या जापानी. और फिर आज सभी के लिए हमारा यही कौमी नारा है, दूर हटो दूर हटो दूर हटो ये दुनिया वालों, हिंदुस्तान हमारा है.
Kavi Pradeep is among the handful of patriots who always thought of nation first. The strong morale-boosting words of "Ae mere watan ke logon" gave solace to a nation agonized in the aftermath of 1962 India-China war.
He donated his lifetime royalty of the song "Ae Mere Watan Ke Logo" to the war widows of the Indian Army. We salute this patriot poet whose songs still imbue every Indian with nationalistic zeal.
कुछ याद उन्हें भी कर लो जो लौट के घर ना.
We'll be back in just a bit.
As the day unfolds and news and events take shape, we get you complete coverage of every news breaking in, tracking new developments as they happen. Midday Prime English, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. on DD India.
Welcome back after the break. India has been re-elected to the International Maritime Organization Council. The Assembly of the International Maritime Organization elected the members of its council for the 2022-23 biennium. India's delegation to the IMO extends heartfelt thanks to all the fellow member states, looks forward to working with all for achievement of the common goals. IMO, that is the International Maritime Organization, is the United Nations specialized agency with responsibility for safety and security of shipping and the prevention of marine and atmospheric pollution by the ships. And up next, we take a look at the global figures with regard to COVID. COVID cases have been spiraling once again globally. The tally of COVID cases has crossed 26 crore 94 lakh globally, while over 24 crore 22 lakh people have recovered from the virus so far. Over 53 lakh to 12,000 people have lost their lives, and the US continues to remain the worst affected country, registering more than 5 crore 7 lakh cases and over 8.17 lakh deaths. Also, COVID cases are rising across European nations, with United Kingdom being the hardest hit in the continent. The UK has more than 1 crore 7 lakh cases of COVID, followed by France, where the cases have risen above 81 lakh 5,000. Germany also registers a spike in the number of cases, with total tally standing above 64 lakh 63,000. Spain trails behind with over 52 lakh 90,000 COVID cases. As cases of COVID rise in New York, the state government has made mask and face covering mandatory from next week. New York Governor Kathy Hochul on Friday said that starting next week, face coverings must be worn inside all businesses and venues unless they have implemented a vaccine requirement. The measure will be in effect from December 13 to January 15th in order to curb the spread of the virus during the holidays, when more time is spent indoors, shopping and gathering. While 80% of New Yorkers are fully vaccinated, the state has seen a recent surge in the spread of the virus, which has killed more than 46,000 residents. UK scientists have warned that 2 doses of the COVID vaccine are not enough to stop someone catching the Omicron variant. Early analysis of UK Omicron and Delta cases showed the vaccines were less effective at stopping the new variant, but a third booster prevents around 75% of people getting any COVID symptoms.
After 2 doses of vaccine, particularly more than 3 months after your second dose, there's a much reduced vaccine effectiveness against symptomatic mild infection in the community. What that means is that people who've had 2 doses more than 3 months ago are likely to get infection and transmit infection. What we see is after the booster dose, and that happens quite fast after the booster dose, in early analysis, probably at 14 days and even up to just even 7 days, that effect is reversed. And actually what we're seeing is, no matter what your backbone, whether you had Astra or Pfizer, you've got a 70 to 75% vaccine effectiveness for a symptomatic disease.
Germany is battling with the shortage of medical facilities as the number of COVID cases are continuously rising due to the Omicron variant. The country recorded the highest number of deaths from COVID since February on 8th of December as it battles to stop a 4th wave of the pandemic. Doctors in Berlin hospitals are worried as there was little room in the ICUs that were left. The country reported over 61,000 new infections from the virus and around 500 more related deaths on Friday. Germany, in the grip of a 4th wave of infections, has a relatively low rate of vaccination as compared with the rest of Europe. Some 69.4% of the population is fully vaccinated, while at least 21.3% have received a booster shot. The International Council of Nurses has said that the numbers of nurses around the world are falling further just as the Omicron COVID variant spreads. There is also an imbalance as Western countries step up the recruitment of healthcare workers from African and other poorer countries. It further said that many nurses are burned out from the COVID pandemic and rates of intention to leave within a year have doubled to 20 to 30%. There was already a global shortage of 6 million nurses before the pandemic, and some 4.75 million nurses are due to retire over the next few years. Brazil's health ministry has said that its website was hit on Friday by a hacker attack that took several systems down, including one with information about the national immunization program and another used to issue digital vaccination certificates. The alleged hackers posted a message on the website saying that internal data had been copied and deleted. Contact us if you want the data back, it said, including email and telegram contact info as well. The message had been removed by Friday afternoon, but the web page was still down, while user data in the Connect SUS app had disappeared. Now, the ministry said that it was working to restore its system. Meanwhile, the government put off for a week implementing new health requirements for travellers arriving in Brazil due to the attack. Police said that they are investigating the attack. And in some other news, since the Taliban seized power in Afghanistan in mid-August, the conflict-stricken nation has been dealing not only with political turmoil, but also a severe economic crisis and increasing poverty. Let's take a look at this report.
Like thousands in Afghanistan, life has taken a dramatic turn for 43-year-old Hadia, who worked as a school teacher with a career that spanned a decade. She taught in various institutions. Things changed quickly when the Taliban seized Kabul on August 15th in a culmination of its rapid conquest of the country, and Hadia lost her job soon after. Now, Hadia sits by a roadside in Kabul on a neatly folded rug, trying to scrape a living by being a shoe shiner. Father of my kids had a job and he lost his job. My daughter had a job, then she lost it too. And my son lost his work as a student as well. I also had a job but lost it. I turned to polishing shoes when I saw that my kids are hungry. We are spending days in hunger right now, and for time being there is no one at our family who could financially support us all. One by one, members of her family also lost their jobs since the Taliban came to power. First was Hadia's husband, who was a cook in a private company, followed by her daughter, who worked as a clerk in a government organization. Even her eldest son, midway through a computer science program in a private university, was forced to quit his studies after the family could not afford the tuition fee. The Taliban must allow the women to go to work. They must provide jobs for them. There is no employment right now. Some widows are the only food providers for their family, while some women want to financially help their husbands, so the Taliban must allow women to work. The United Nations has repeatedly warned that Afghanistan is on the brink of the world's worst humanitarian crisis. Afghanistan teeters on the brink of universal poverty. As much as 97% of the population is at risk of sinking below the poverty line unless a response to the country's political and economic crisis is urgently launched, according to a rapid appraisal released by United Nations Development Programme.
Afghanistan pretty much faces universal poverty by middle of next year. That's where we're heading. It's 97, 98%, no matter how you work these projections. We're using a lot of the data that the World Bank and others have also submitted. So together with political instability, you've now got a freeze on foreign reserves. So if you look at this, it's both a humanitarian and development disaster.
In what the UN Development Programme described as an alarming socio-economic outlook for Afghanistan for the next 13 months, it also pushed a $100 million cash for work project to boost employment and $90 million in small business payments. The UN said on December 1st that a program to pay $300 million a year in cash to Afghanistan families with children, elderly or people with disabilities is the best way to target increasing poverty. Yet for now, in the face of growing poverty, people like Hadia could only urge the Taliban to allow women to work in order to make ends meet. Bureau Report, DD India.
Sad state of affairs in Afghanistan. Up next, we take a look in the Mexico truck accident case. Mexican authorities are working to identify the 55 people killed after a truck overturned in a road in the south of the country. More than 150 people, said to be migrants from Central America, were crammed into the truck's trailer when it overturned in the state of Chiapas. Mexican President Andres Lopez Obrador said that the nation was hurting over the tragedy. He also called on the world to address the root causes of mass migration. The truck was reportedly speeding when it flipped on a sharp bend and hit a pedestrian bridge on a main road leading to the state capital on Thursday. Over 50 people, mostly Central Americans, were killed in one of the worst accidents involving migrants who risked their lives to reach the United States. Also, the Mexican Foreign Affairs Minister Marcelo Ebrard is expected to announce a plan to stem migrant smuggling following the accident in the state. Meanwhile, Mexico President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador has expressed grief over the horror accident. He said that he deeply regrets the tragedy and that it is very painful. He also added that it has not been possible to address the root cause of the migratory phenomena. The United Nations Human Rights Office said on Friday that Myanmar's military was committing grave violations, including killing 11 people and setting fire to their bodies. U.S. State Department spokesperson Ned Price said on Thursday that the United States was outraged by the reports that Myanmar soldiers rounded up and killed 11 people in the northwestern region of Sagyang. There was no immediate reaction from Myanmar's military rulers to the accusations from the UN rights body.
We're appalled by the alarming escalation of grave human rights abuses in Myanmar. In the last week alone, security forces have killed and burned to death 11 people, among them 5 minors, and rammed vehicles into protesters exercising their fundamental right to peaceful assembly. More than 10 months since Myanmar's military overthrew the democratically elected government in a February coup, the country's human rights situation is deepening on an unprecedented scale, with serious violations reported daily of the rights to life, liberty and security of person, the prohibition against torture, the right to a fair trial, and freedom of expression.
The United States on Friday imposed extensive human rights-related sanctions on dozens of people and entities tied to China, Myanmar, North Korea and Bangladesh, and added Chinese artificial intelligence company SenseTime Group to an investment blacklist. Canada and the United Kingdom joined the United States in imposing sanctions related to human rights abuses in Myanmar, while Washington also imposed the first new sanctions on North Korea under President Joe Biden's administration and targeted Myanmar military entities, among others, in action marking Human Rights Day. Several people were killed and many were injured in an explosion in South Lebanon Palestinian camp on Friday. The explosion took place at a Hamas weapons depot in the Burj al-Shemali camp, and a judge had ordered security forces to launch an investigation. As per the local media agency, the explosion was caused by ignition of oxygen canisters stored for use in fighting the pandemic. The surrounding area had been evacuated and rescue crews were deployed. Time now for a short break. When we come back, we'll get you more international updates. Stay with us.
As the day unfolds and news and events take shape, we get you complete coverage of every news breaking in, tracking new developments as they happen. Midday Prime English, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. on DD India.
Welcome back after the break. Finance ministers from the group of 7 rich nations will meet virtually on Monday to discuss the recent spike in inflation. Among other matters, a source familiar with the matter said on Friday, the G7 presidency, which is held by the UK this year, will pass on to Germany on 1st of January 2022. The agenda will include economic issues such as inflation, global health and climate. The G7 meeting, held against the backdrop of a potential invasion of Ukraine, tensions in the South China Sea and the potential collapse of Iran nuclear deal, is being billed by UK Foreign Secretary as a chance to show a united front against malign behavior, including Russian posturing towards Ukraine. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Friday sat down with German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock ahead of the weekend meetings of the group of 7 ministers in Liverpool. Security matters, including the buildup of Russian forces on Ukraine's border, COVID vaccines, global infrastructure and growth in the Indo-Pacific region, will be on the agenda of the G7 meetings. Baerbock is Germany's first female foreign minister. She said on Thursday that Europe needed to find a common response on the issue of a diplomatic boycott of February's Winter Olympics in Beijing. Blinken will also speak with G7 members and countries joining in as guests, including Australia, India, the Republic of Korea and members of Association of Southeast Asian Nations. The 2021 Nobel laureates for physics, chemistry, medicine, literature and economics were officially awarded their prizes at a ceremony in Stockholm on Friday, although they received their medals and diplomas in their home countries last week. The 2021 laureates in medicine, physics, chemistry, literature and economics prizes were all awarded in Sweden, and they received their diplomas and medals in their respective home countries, while traditional Nobel lectures have all been given online. Japanese-born American Suikoro Manabe, German Klaus Hasselmann and Italian Giorgio Parisi won the 2021 Nobel Prize in Physics. German Benjamin List and also Scottish-born David Macmillan won the 2021 Nobel Prize in Chemistry. And Russia unveiled the national team uniform for the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics on Friday, leaving out its tricolor flag from the design to comply with doping sanctions. Russian athletes are barred from competing at major international events, including the Olympics, under their flag and with their anthem until December 2022. The sanctions, initially imposed by the World Anti-Doping Agency, that is WADA, but later halved to 2 years on appeal, were designed to punish Moscow for providing doctor lab data to international anti-doping authorities that could have helped identify drug cheats. At the Beijing Games, which run from February 4th till 20th, Russians will be competing as representatives of the Russian Olympic Committee under the acronym of ROC, as they did at the Tokyo Summer Olympics this year. In Kenya, veteran opposition leader Raila Odinga launched his 5th bid for presidency on Friday, this time with the support of his former President Uhuru Kenyatta. Odinga praised Kenyatta for initiating the dialogue that united them 4 years ago after a bitter dispute following the 2017 vote. Voters are due to go to polls next August, but Kenyatta will not be on the ballot due to a constitutional term limit of 2 5-year terms. In Odinga's last 3 runs for office in 2007, 2013, he led his supporters to protest at the outcomes or challenge them in court, saying his victories were stolen. Deadly clashes followed the 2007 and 2017 votes. On Friday in Chile, more than 100 homes were burned by a forest fire that spread to the town of Castro on the tourist island of Chiloé of southern Chile. Interior Ministry officials said that the fire was brought under control overnight, although some areas were still smoldering. Residents were seen desperately trying to save their belongings. The Chiloé archipelago is located about 1,000 kilometers south of the capital city, Santiago. And from Chile to Mexico now, the landslide that hit the Cerro del Chiquete hill on the edge of Mexico City in September buried many houses, killing 4 people and forcing over 140 families to relocate. It was just one of the scores of natural disasters to strike Mexico in the past few years, exacerbated by urban growth and extreme Met conditions, which are becoming more commonplace due to climate change, scientific studies now show. President Obrador vowed to relocate the families displaced by the landslide and said that corruption in the past governments led to plots in dangerous areas being sold. In France, rivers overflowed their banks across a large swath on Friday after heavy rainfall, leading to several evacuations of residents. Streets turned into rivers in Beyond City on Friday, and video uploaded on social media shows Nive River overflowing onto the streets of the city, prompting the authorities to close the roads and forcing residents to walk in knee-high waters. The Met Service, Météo France, issued a red alert for flood risk in the departments of Landes and Pyrenees-Atlantiques, together with an orange alert for rain and risk for avalanche in the rest of Pyrenees region. In Spain, at least one person was killed on Friday as heavy rains and severe flooding from Storm Bara caused rivers to overflow in the Navarre region. Police said that the person in the small village of San Villa died after a landslide. The roof of a building at their farmhouse caved in. The regional government declared a level 2 flood emergency and said that similar conditions were likely to prevail today, with the focus of the flood heading south towards the town of Peralta. River Arga in Spain's northern region of Navarre broke its banks in the town of Vilava on Friday, flooding streets and leaving many homes submerged underwater with only their rooftops visible. Let's get to updates from the world of business now. Taking a look at U.S. stocks first, Wall Street advanced on Friday and the S&P 500 notched an all-time closing high as market participants digested an inflation reading that was in line with consensus but also marked the largest annual increase in consumer prices in nearly 4 decades. According to preliminary data, the S&P 500 gained 44.2 points or 0.95% to end at 4,711.66 points, while the Nasdaq Composite gained 113.23 points or 0.72% to 15,630.6. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 216.24 points or 0.6% to 35,970.93. U.S. consumer prices increased further in November as the cost of goods and services rose broadly amid supply constraints, leading to the largest annual gain since 1982, which could encourage the Federal Reserve to quickly wind down its bond purchases. The Consumer Price Index rose 0.8% last month after surging 0.9% in October, the Labor Department said on Friday. In the 12 months through November, the CPI accelerated 6.8%. That was the biggest year-on-year rise since June 1982 and followed a 6.2 advance in October. Fed Chair Jerome Powell has said that the U.S. Central Bank should consider speeding up the winding down of its massive bond purchases at its 2-day policy meeting starting on December 14th. Many economists are expecting an early Fed interest rate increase. Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden has said that inflation is likely peaking in the United States and is likely to come down faster than most people expect.
Sooner than, quicker than, more rapidly than it will take than most people think. Every other aspect of the economy is racing ahead. It's doing incredibly well. We've never had this kind of growth in 60 years. But inflation is affecting people's lives.
Russian aggression against Ukraine would come at a price, the head of the European Commission said on Friday, but declined to say outrightly if such a move by Moscow would trigger European Union sanctions against the Russian gas pipeline Nord Stream 2. Ursula von der Leyen was speaking at a joint news conference with Germany's new Chancellor Olaf Scholz in response to a question if cutting off Nord Stream 2 would be part of any stepping up of sanctions on Russia in case it attacked Ukraine. Scholz refused to spell out the exact consequences of a Russian invasion of Ukraine.
We want de-escalation from Russia and the cessation of all aggression against its neighbors. It should respect the sovereign rights of nations, otherwise the European Union would be looking to intensify its sanctions and also to take other measures across economic sectors, financial sectors.
Meanwhile, NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg on Friday rejected Russian demands to resign a 2008 commitment to Ukraine that the country would one day become a member of the Western Military Alliance. Germany's new Chancellor Olaf Scholz, in an inaugural trip across Europe, said members of the 30-member strong military alliance had to work together to press upon other countries that threaten Ukraine's integrity.
Any sovereign, independent nation, of course, has the right to choose its own path, including what kind of security arrangements it wants to be part of. So NATO's relationship with Ukraine is going to be decided by the 30 NATO allies and Ukraine, no one else.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Friday sat down with British Foreign Minister Liz Truss ahead of weekend meetings of the group of 7 ministers in Liverpool. Security matters including the buildup of Russian forces on Ukraine's border, COVID-19 vaccines, global infrastructure and growth in the Indo-Pacific region will be on the agenda of the G7 meetings. Truss pledged on Wednesday to stand with Ukraine against Russian aggression, saying London was discussing with NATO allies other measures to take to prevent an incursion. Also, Blinken will speak with G7 members and countries joining as guests, including Australia, India, the Republic of Korea, and the members of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Meanwhile, UK Foreign Minister Liz Truss said on Friday that Russia would be making a strategic mistake if it took military action in Ukraine and would face severe consequences as a result. Speaking ahead of the G7 Foreign Ministers meeting in the northwest English city of Liverpool, Truss also said that UK was building security and economic ties with partners like Ukraine to protect them in the future. Truss said that Russia could find it more difficult to conduct business in financial hubs like London.
What we have to do is deter Russia from taking that course of action. I've been very clear it would be a strategic mistake for Russia to do that. And what the G7 meeting this weekend that's taking place is about a show of unity between like-minded major economies, that we are going to absolutely be strong in our stance against aggression with respect to Ukraine. There will be severe consequences if anything were to happen, but also make sure that we're building security and economic relationships with like-minded partners, including Ukraine, to protect them in the future.
And up next, we're heading for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back after the break. Continuing with international updates, humanitarian aid of medical consignment from India reached Kabul from Delhi, and the consignment includes 1.6 metric tons of life-saving medicines. Afghanistan's ambassador to India, Farid Mamundzeh, thanked India for sending medical aid for an Afghan children's hospital in Kabul. He also expressed happiness over the first direct flight between Kabul and New Delhi since 15th August. This year, the ambassador in a series of tweets said, and I quote, "It was great to see the first direct flight between Kabul and New Delhi by Calm Air on December 10th and 11th. Over 200 passengers travelled in both directions, together with 1.6 metric tons of medical aid sent to an Afghan children's hospital in Kabul. Emotional feelings and scenes. Thank you, India." He further said that all kids need is a little help, a little hope, and somebody who believes in them. The first consignment of medical aid from India arrived to Kabul this morning. 1.6 metric tons of life-saving medicines will help many families in this difficult time. Gift from people of India. All right, let's get you sports updates now. Norwegian chess master Magnus Carlsen once again won the 2021 FIDE World Championship title after beating GM Ian Nepomniachtchi with the black pieces. He defended his trophy by defeating Ian of Russia by 7.5 to 3.5. This is Carlsen's 5th world title, and he won the best of 14 game series 11 in 3 hours and 20 minutes. Carlsen took advantage of his opponent's mistake to register a thrilling victory after several game draws. He secured the 1 point needed to cross the 7-point limit to win the global tournament held at the Expo 2020 in Dubai this month in the UAE. The first 5 rounds ended in draws, while Carlsen won the 6th round, which lasted 8 hours. He won after 136 moves, the longest in the history of the World Championships. From chess to cricket now, Australia drew first blood as they beat England by 9 wickets on day 4 of the opening Ashes Test at Gaya in Brisbane to take a 1-0 lead in the 5-match series. After bowling England out for 297 at lunch on Saturday, Australia chased down the target in 31 balls. Alex Carey was the only wicket to fall in Australia's second innings, with Marcus Harris hitting the winning runs. The hosts needed just 20 runs to win in Brisbane after another English batting collapse, with spinner Leon passing 400 test wickets for Australia. After starting the morning in a reasonable position following a superb fight back from Joe Root and David Malan on Friday, the Englishmen lost 8 for 77 in the extended first session. Earlier, Travis Head's 152 took Australia to a first innings total of 425. Initially, England were bowled out for 147. After opting to bat first, Travis Head was declared player of the match for his 152. And the Indian hockey team has reached Bangladesh for the Asian Champions Trophy to be held in Dhaka. This will be the first international tournament for the Indian team after winning the bronze medal at the recent Tokyo Olympic Games. Only 8 players from the Tokyo Olympic team were named in the squad for the Asian Champions Trophy. Some Olympians, including P.R. Srijesh, will not be participating in this tournament. India will play their first match against Korea on 14 December, and this will be followed by Bangladesh on 15th December, arch rivals Pakistan on 17 December, Malaysia on 18 December, and Japan on 19th December. In the Premier League, 2 goals in the last 6 minutes scored by Brian Mbeumo's last gasp penalty earned Brentford a stunning late 2-1 comeback win over Watford on Friday night football match. Also, Brentford moved back into the top half of the standings, while Watford remained 3 points above the relegation zone. Emmanuel Dennis seemed to have breathed life into Watford's survival bid with his first half header that held up until 6 minutes remained. The Bees hauled themselves level through Pontus Jansson. Also, then Mbeumo, deputizing from the spot for the COVID-infected Ivan Toney, held his nerve to secure a memorable victory. Time again for a short break. Stay with us.